52 weeks in a year, yes, Petra? Which is 13 months, isn't it? No, 12 months if we're doing it at what? Some weeks have 5, some have 4, do they? If there are 13 moon phases, then there are 13 sun phases, yeah?
But we count 12 months.
The only reason why they count 12 months, could it be because they want to pay you 12 months salary as opposed to 13?
Yeah, and because they each month different number of days.
Then there's a missing hour, and you gain 2 hours sometimes, yes? Or you gain an hour. So 52 weeks, how many 4s go into 52? I need a calculator for that. How many 4s go into, is it times 52? Yeah, and then calculate for that one. I'm pretty sure there's 13 months in a year. Where is the calculator? Do you know?
I don't know, it was last time here, but it really have to pick up this. Not your tablet.
It does. It very much does. So what would that be? 4 times 52? No. How do I get that in an equation, Patil? Huh? 52 weeks. How many 4s to get 13? So would that be 13 divided by 52?
52 divided by 13, yeah?
Divided by 13.
And then you know how much does it make?
And then it comes up with 4. So
28 is 4 weeks, isn't it?
yeah, we come up with 4. 52 divided by.
Yeah, because 13 times 4, yeah. Because let's repeat those things and
So does that make 13?
yeah.
So 13 makes 4 weeks, yes?
Yeah, and each month we could have 28 days.
So we call it a lunar calendar, yes? But actually it's a summer calendar then, isn't it? So therefore the zodiac table is wrong. So there are 13 months in a year. And it's not done by lunar. But why would they trick you with that? I don't make it. Lunar is done by moon.
Calendar has 13 months.
Yes, 13, but
And solar calendar has 12 because.
Okay, but I did 52 weeks in a year, which gave me 4, which 4 weeks is the same as a lunar calendar. So therefore, there are 13 months of sun cycles, and there are 13 months of lunar cycles. So lunar and sun cycles, that means there are 13 4-weekly periods in a year. Yes? Therefore, the zodiac is wrong. How can you ever expect to grow a hedge fund of nature off of 12 months when 12 months doesn't work? You then need to gain an hour and lose an hour. And therefore, does farming fall on the same time when you need to sow your seeds? Interesting. So technically, there are 13 sun cycles per year, as much as there are 13 moon cycles. So 13 and 13, yes? So 13 moon and 13 sun. But why do we make one where there is 13? Because once in a blue moon, yes? Once in a blue moon is once a year. That means you have 2 moons per month, doesn't it? Which makes no sense. You don't have 2 suns per month, do you? But there again, you do. So therefore, Pegasus is the other solar star sign, isn't it? So the last month in the year is Pegasus. So it's not December, is it? It's remember. No. Remember the 5th of December. No. Remember is the last month of the year. December, remember. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, remember. Which is Pegasus, isn't it? Pegasus is a star sign. There are 13 zodiacs. Did you know that? You didn't know that there were 13 zodiacs? Oh, that's interesting. So in ancient times, they counted 13 solar cycles. Yeah. You probably wonder why this is so important. Which it is. It's massively important. So why has the calendar been switched to 12 months? And if you're paid by month, and people say, well, we're paid weekly, you're actually not, are you? You're paid monthly. So you're paid for 12 months when you should be being paid for 13. So you are working 13 months and you are only paid for 12. And even less than that because of holiday, right? And weekends. So could you imagine if they pushed this further, they would then want you to work 11 months. Be paid for 11 months but work 12, but then work 13. Isn't that interesting? Do you find that fascinating? Do you think the Egyptians, ancient Egyptians, made glass? Glass. Yeah, I believe they do. So I think there are 13 months in a year. And why is this important? Well, it's not important if you are an everyday person, but I think that 13 sun cycles. Just like there are 13 moon cycles, yes? Which then means the watches are incorrect. Don't you think so? Well, if they're only counting 12 months, that's wrong. And therefore, they give you... Do they give you an extra week in some months and 28 days in another? (31, 28, 31? Yeah, one has 28, then there's miss an hour, gain an hour. So therefore, it's not quite 13. So Pegasus has an interest in... There would be the cold time, wouldn't it? 13 cycles, not 12. So that would make 26 cycles, 26 solar cycles before you have the pole change of the star. Interesting. Interesting. And this helps farming as well. Interesting. Leap year. Leap years, gain, move, maneuver. So the ancients were far more understanding of this 13th cycle. Why was it so important? Well, there is a reason behind it, but still. Well, moving on. Do you believe the Egyptians made glass? Is it called the Dindira light bulb? And do you believe that they had metal back then? Well, we like to believe that the Metal Age happened just a very recent time, don't we? But what happens if it bounces back to Egyptians? So they say 14,000 years, yes? Which is the Metal Age. How would you get electricity inside the pyramids? I think electric eels. If you have enough electric eels and you have glass and you blow some gases inside the glass and you have a fire that forges the glass to make the Dindira light bulb, yes? And you have another pipe full of molten glass. You fill it up with sand until it becomes molten. And let's say if we have the clubs, the thing that was capable of blowing air into a fire. Do you remember that? What if the Egyptians made that? But their way of doing it was to blow air into glass. What happens if they pressurized a certain amount of gases into the glass and then inserted a molten metal rod that once they pumped the air into it, that they could seal it so that there was pressurized glass with a gas inside it? If they brought it close to electric eels, would this create light? So you know, if we get a fluorescent light and put it underneath high voltage power cables, did you know that they will light up? But if you do the same with electric eels, and the Nile had a lot of electric eels, and you put these into a container, which would be the first day fish tanks. Now, there's a funny thing about that. You would say that they would die, but if you had a chamber of water that dripped in at 1 drop per hour, and also it overflowed and knocked out 1 drop per hour as 1 drop comes in, another drop leaves, and whether that's through evaporation or anything else, if you had electric eels and you fed them at the right ratio, they would create an electrical charge that would then excite the particles inside the tube, which would then create light. And therefore you'd be able to see inside the Egyptian pyramids, ancient times, without ever needing electricity or light as you would know it. Now that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Do you ever think that they ever did do that? And that if they had it as synchronicity, one creates a charge that's enough to excite the gases inside the tube. It's enough to create light, and then another, and another, and another, and another, and in synchronicity, and run this. So that this one becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you repeat it again, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you would be able to generate a continuous light from a Dindira light bulb. But it would have to be very long. And then you would need the right amount of food to fall in to here at a synchronicity, and that's why you might not find any scorched. Therefore, they would have needed to create a glass. Glass came from later on with Christianity, didn't it? But Christians got their database from Egyptians, ancient Egyptians. Stained glass window. But where did they create that from? I think they got it from the Egyptians that knew how to make glass. And again, being surrounded by sand, they would have made glass. They would have very hot fires. They would also fermented alcohol. So the top of the pyramids, I think they had a glass chamber above the pyramids that they filled with fermented alcohol, and they set it alight at night, therefore creating light. Now that would have been fucking impressive. And if they'd have got the light to concentrate with lenses, they would have got the light to go inside the pyramids even at night, which then gives you the cross in the... which is very interesting, isn't it? Interesting, which would then have generated heat. Heat could then evaporate water to purify water. It's all about purification. Yes, which would then explain the tools. The tools to build the pyramids. They say that they did those with what? Flint fucking axe? That's unlikely. They must have had metal tools. And therefore, I think that they lit up the desert. And energy, they would have understood it from electric eels. Now maybe they couldn't store the energy to be long generation. However, if they got a certain eel to go one after the other, after the other, after the other, and kept this in a prophecy to repeat, I think that they could then excite the gases inside a chamber, which would then create light. Why is the 13 months with the sun cycle and the moon cycle so important? Well, you know plants take in blue light, yes? And we understand that blue light is smaller than red light, yes? But it's technically not true. Because if we add in the blue light from the moon phase, plus the blue light that's inside the sun's phase, you should draw red light like this, and you should draw blue light equal to. So when we see a graph of how much light is being generated, that's an interesting thing. And why is that interesting? Well, because if you want to grow food, you need to understand blue and red light. And not just blue and red light. You need to be able to understand the intensity and when it is more intense. So in the winter, you're producing more blue light, sorry. But if we factor in the moonlight plus cold, so cold equals blue, moon phase also equals blue light, then blue light is equal to the red light in the summer in increased. And then we take summer and we take in red light, and we also take in moon phase of blue light. That is an equal keon of blue and red light. Therefore, blue is just as equal as the red, which then gives you a red, white, blue, which gives you purple light. You will not be able to grow a decent amount of crops if you don't cater for both. So, when growing plants, yes, indoors, I must and I always counter in for the moon. Hence why making a small piece of light being blue, then a little bit bigger, allowing more light, then a little bit more, and then a piece more, then all the way up to full moon, and then I need to start waning down. Then waning down, smaller, smaller, until gone. There are no lights on the market currently that factor in for moon phase. Nothing there factors in for moon phase or transition, which is very interesting, and I don't know why that is. Which is very important for growing plants. Did you know that? Bet you didn't. Bet you guessed that it was all about the fucking red light. Which it ain't. It's about red and blue, and it's about temperature, heat. And did you know that on the Earth, here's the Earth, and the sun is here, the light intensity here is different to the light intensity of the equator to the light intensity here. If you want to grow food from, let's say, I don't know, places from the equator, places that are up, places that are down beyond the equator, the light intensity of the star needs to be factored in as much as the light intensity of the moon at night also needs to be factored in. And its intensity is different based on the angle. The equator is different to the subhemisphere. Both of these light contrasts are different in intensity. Therefore, atmosphere of pressure, light intensity, which is also known as, anyway, it doesn't matter. Pressure, light intensity, and moon light intensity are all factors in growing. That's why potatoes often or not won't grow anywhere other than certain areas. And you'll say that it's because they've evolved. Not true. It's because they rely on the moonlight. Did you know that potatoes rely on a full moon before they are harvested? Did you know that? Certain types of potatoes rely on the last cycle of a full moon. And because they're both equal to 13, these 13. And then you have 33, 1, and 1. 1, 1, 11, 11, 33. Isn't that interesting? You want to be a good farmer, you got to understand both of these phases. You also need to understand the heat intensity, the pressure, and the moonlight. And also moonlight is often renowned as giving and taking. The moon is often seen as taken and the moon is seen as given. A push and pull ratio. If you want to grow plants, you must factor in the moon. And another question you might have is, which is the optimal ratio? So we often look at the sun. We're always looking at the sun. We never look at the moon. But the moon plays a vital role, whether you like it or not, just because humans say that it is or isn't, in growing plants. Now, we will often base in cloud as well. Anyway, it doesn't really matter whether we factor the cloud in or not. If we remove the cloud, do we have optimal? And do we have optimal sun? Therefore, do we create pressure? So, if I was here in Britain and I take a light sensor and I test the lumens and I test the pressure at when the potato grows, if I was to then go to China or I was to go to Australia, the light intensity is going to be different. So is the moon intensity. Those two ingredients, you can play around with the light all you want. You won't grow potatoes. Why? Because you're not factoring in the blue light. Now, from your perspective, are you getting enough blue light? Plus the atmosphere and the way that it scatters the light. Is it going to be efficient enough to grow those potatoes? The answer is no. What about the sun? Is it going to be efficient enough to grow those potatoes? No. Are you going to create the same pressure? No. Are you going to create the same temperature? Absolutely not. So inside your biome, you must factor in all of these. So at night, there needs to be a moon phase transition of intensity. Never mind clouds. Don't worry about clouds. Clouds, no. Clouds are not an optimal thing. They actually hinder whether you grow crops, and the outcome of your crops are determined on whether the moon is full. And even in moonlight, some people say that it is colder in the moonlight. It's not true. It's actually warmer. Do you find it warmer under a full moon than when there is no moon? And in some nights, it's quite bright, isn't it? Solar panels increase by a very small fraction under moonlight. Now that is interesting, isn't it? Not much, but it's enough to read it. Your visibility, you can also see. And humans say, I swear that it's a full moon. Why is that? Because people are going crazy. Well, that's interesting. Interesting that it affects humans, but just, no, never nature. If you want to be a good farmer, you need to look at sun and moon. You will also need to factor in 13 cycles of sun, 13 cycles of moon. You will also need to understand the blue light, and you will also need to understand the red light. Even during the day in the mid of summer, you see this graph here, but you also see the blue light, which looks like this. But if we factored in a full moon too, what else do we see? Well, it seems to be this much blue light. Nature is sensitive to light, gravitational pull, and it doesn't care about the moon. It does. And it doesn't care about... isn't there some flowers that flower only in a full moon? And there are some of these plants that close up just at the end of sunset, yes? They close, but under a full moon, they fully open. That's interesting, isn't it? Only under a full moon, mind you, but even still, it still shows you that they are responding to the light from the moon. And what they end up doing is then providing for moths, which are butterflies. They are night butterflies, just because humans have categorized these as moths. They're actually night butterflies, still work on the same process, and they still pollinate, just do it at night, which is fascinating, how they're able to do this sort of stuff at night. And butterflies tend to do it in the day. Just as gorgeous, just as elegant, and very beneficial. Which is interesting. And the light that, isn't it infrared that bounces off of some plants that attract some insects? So there's a certain type of hue that comes from this. This is why they tend to attract to, what do you call it, light. If you put your back door light on, you'll often see a lot of moths there. They're attracted to it, but I wonder if it's because we've confused them. They're not supposed to be seeing that light at night. They're supposed to be seeing that light bounce off of certain types of plants that refract the light to appear as infrared light under a full moon, which is interesting, isn't it? And therefore, they get attracted to it and they're trying to pollinate with it because it stands out the most. In their world, I believe that the more intense the refraction ratio is, what they see, the more potently pollinate or pollen is and nectar is produced from the flower. And therefore they mistake lights as this. This is interesting. I just don't understand why we've shut out 13 months of the sun. And we often go, yeah, it's a lunar calendar. Well, it's not really a lunar calendar, is it? It's a solar calendar. But there again, watches would be wrong. Time is also wrong. 13 lunar cycles and 13 solar cycles. And therefore, when were you born? When does Pegasus show itself? And why miss that out? Because of information? I know something you don't know, therefore I'm more powerful than you are. What a load of tosh. What a load of crap. So, when growing plants, if you want a better yield, you must factor in the moon. It often gets overlooked, and therefore your yields actually diminish. If you think about how big your yields are, usually, you can amplify this if you factor in the moonlight. It's all about temperature though. Temp, moon phase, which is blue light, and also moonlight, which is very strong in blue, sorry, I meant to say moon, and also sunlight, which is strong in red. Red and blue plus white gives you the best yield that you'll ever find on plants. Therefore, temperature, because no matter where we are on the planet, the optimal or the best that it can do is grow these foods under this ratio. If it's northern hemisphere, it's got a different scatter of light. It hits the atmosphere and it scatters in a very different way. Southern hemisphere, slightly different. And again with the moon, slightly different. So the moon and the star factor a role, which then will give you an outcome of crops. So if you want to grow crops all the way over the world, round the world, and that means that any crop that grows on this planet If you want to nail it, pressure, light, and moonlight. Lots of these things, plus temperature. So we can control a temperature in an environment. We can make it hotter when it's colder outside and mimic summer. And we can also make it cooler when it gets too hot in the summer. The optimal ratio, therefore, if we factor in moonlight and we go through the phases, so there's a small intensity of blue, then a little bit more intensity of blue, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, and then a maximum, which is full moon, and then contrasts out, starts to wane out. There's an increase at night in temperature when the moon is out. This is what I've always noticed. Do you remember those cold nights on walking to the shops in Bunwell? Do you remember how warm it was under the full moon and how much you could see? You could cast a shadow, right? And then you could start to do those little strange dances in the shadow. You remember? Looked like you were walking across the road with your shadow from the moon. And sometimes it was quite clear that you could see quite a few miles away, couldn't you? Very blue, yes? But did you notice the way that the nature had responded to it in the summer? And the increase in moths as well, which therefore is pollination. Interesting. So if you want a successful yield and go into space, you need to understand this stuff. You need to get it right. So 13 months in a year, not 12, 13. And I think because it's not quite accurate, the time is also not correct. And what is this a reason for? So that I can pay you for 12 months when you're working 13? And therefore, Christmas is not the last, December is not the last. And is that because you can't split 13? You can split 12, can't you? And then say half year. So, do you believe the universe works in odds or evens? I'm going to say odds. But is it really odd if we then factor in the moon? Then it looks even. So, 13 months in a year. Interesting. And then are your birth charts correct? Saturday the 13th. That's interesting, isn't it? And then are the days correct? If we reset to 0, and then we're saying 31 days, when does your birthday fall? Because you haven't got accurate birth charts then, do you? Because if you're born on if you're on the 31st of a month, you're in the next month already, so are you really the star sign you think you are? Because if there is 13 cycles, which shows that there is, then your whole birth charts are wrong. And then, where are you truly born? What is the month? What is your real star sign? Why this really matters, I don't know. Astrological charts, witches and everything else, it's all incorrect, isn't it? This is why I like to call scrambling the compass. When you scramble the compass, in order to show how powerful you are, you always return back to your center, your north, yes? Your north node. And therefore, is any of this stuff truly correct? And it would be much more likely to probably dismiss this than it is to dismiss the current knowledge and to still keep using it even though it's broken. It's incorrect. It's not right. It's wrong. But we keep calling it a lunar calendar? Well, that's bullshit, isn't it? Isn't it a lunar fucking calendar? It's just because the silly calendar of 12 months, that's the one that's incorrect. And actually there would be 13 cycles in the year. 13 months. 13, move the 1. And if we move the 1 from the lunar, that's 33. And why is this important? Nature relies on it. And therefore, it can make you a better farmer, can't it? If you think about it. And therefore, if you knock it into 12 months, you can gatekeep farming, can't you? You need to tell people when to. And then April showers. No, it's not really the same as last year. And then that means meteorology is wrong as well then, doesn't it? Oh, it's above average. It's below average. It's not average. But if we put it into a 13 month cycle, would it be correct? Would we be on average? Because it will constantly fluctuate from forward, backwards, forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward. Wow. But yeah, anyway, do whatever you want to do, believe whatever you want to believe. But for me personally, this is where I hit. And when you hit into moon cycles, you understand solar cycles a little bit better. And then every 12 and 12, there's a solar cycle, yes, from minimum to maximum, isn't it? Every 24 years, is it? 26 years. Or are you sure it isn't 13 and 13? Hence why there's the hesitation stage. Interesting. Wow. Well, there we are. Yeah. Believe whatever you want to believe, but, you know. Because if you don't know, you don't know, now you know, you know.